going to take a closer look tonight at one of the most anticipated public stock offerings in recent years. Shares of Google, the company that makes the world's most popular internet search engine, went on sale to great fanfare today.
This is Google, the company that started in a cluttered garage in 1998 with a single mission to organize the world's information. What began as a simple search engine has now evolved into a global empire that touches nearly every corner of the internet. But behind the clean white homepage and colorful logo lies a machine built on one thing. In this video, you're about to see the side of Google most people never do. The $100 billion shadow empire built not on search, but on your attention. We'll uncover how Google turned every click, every search, and every second you spend online into a finely tuned money printing machine. You'll see how this invisible system quietly took over the internet, why governments around the world are trying and failing to stop it, and what it really means for the future of the web we all depend on. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Google doesn't just run the internet, it owns it.
Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to Google I/O.
Dan Niles. Dan, let's start with Alphabet, actually, because the stock's also up about 4.4%.
Google search has been a constant for online publishers seeking clicks for over 20 years. Now,
Can you live without Google? 2 decades back, we did, all of us. But now it seems almost impossible. If you're a student, you depend on Google for your homework. If you're a news junkie, you read the latest headlines on Google. If you're on the road, you switch to Google Maps.
A new court filing hints at how the search giant might frame its arguments around ads and the state of the web.
In April 2025, a federal judge dropped a bombshell verdict. Google had been running an illegal monopoly over the backbone of internet advertising, and now the government wanted to pull it apart. They called it the breakup of Google's ad empire.
So in that filing, Google told a federal court that the open web is already in rapid decline. But analysts call that antitrust strategy not business reality, and rivals argue that the real battle ahead is an ad war.
Weeping publishers, enraged rivals, and hidden pipelines of money were exposed. But how did a company built in a garage end up controlling a $100 plus billion marketplace behind a curtain? And what happens when that curtain is ripped open? To understand that, we need to go back, way back, to the moment Google first stepped onto the ad battlefield. When Google launched AdWords in 2000, it wasn't some master plan for global domination. It was a side feature to make the search engine pay its bills. At the time, the internet was still the Wild West. Banner ads blinked like neon signs, deals were closed over fax machines, and nobody really knew how to measure success. But Google had something everyone else didn't. Data. Every search was a confession. Every click, a clue. So instead of letting advertisers throw money into the void, Google built a system that connected ads directly to what people were searching for. You didn't need to cold call, you didn't need billboards. You just had to be there when someone typed. The algorithm did the rest. But here's the billion-dollar question. How did Google decide which brands to show you first? Every time you search, an ad auction begins instantly. Thousands of advertisers compete for that single moment of your attention. They don't just bid on keywords, they bid on you. Your location, search history, device type, and even the time of day are factored in. Then Google's algorithm uses something called the ad rank formula.
The way Google AdWords works is every time someone clicks on your ads, you pay money. When they don't click on your ads, you don't pay Google money.
That means even if you bid less money, your ad can still win if Google believes users will click it. So it's not just about how much you pay, it's about how well Google trusts your ad to keep people engaged. In a way, you're renting Google's trust, and that's what makes their ad platform so powerful.
When we use Google as a search engine, we expose ourselves to extensive surveillance. We enable Google to use information that Google derives from our queries for personalized advertising. That's at least under the default settings.
Google controls the platform where ads are bought, the websites where they're shown, and the tools that measure their success. That's like owning the casino, the slot machines, and the house odds, all at once. That's the invisible world of Google Ads, a system so complex and so profitable that it's now at the center of global antitrust wars. By 2003, Google had a new idea. Why limit ads to search results? That's when AdSense was born. Suddenly, everyday website owners could make money by letting Google place ads on their pages. It turned the entire internet into one massive advertising network, powered by a company that took a small cut of every dollar flowing through it. It was genius. Millions of small publishers jumped in, and for many, those early AdSense checks were life-changing. They didn't realize they were also feeding the foundation of something much bigger, but the real turning point came in 2007. That year, Google bought DoubleClick for $3.1 billion. To the public, it sounded like just another tech acquisition. Inside the industry, it was the equivalent of a nuclear detonation. DoubleClick already ran a major ad-serving system for publishers and agencies. It was the backbone of the early web's advertising. By acquiring it, Google didn't just sell ads anymore. It controlled the infrastructure that decided which ad appeared on which page.
Search and advertising is Google's bread and butter. It has its moonshot projects, but search and advertising pays for all of that.
Think about that. The same company that auctioned off ads also ran the scoreboard. Regulators waved it through. The logic? Google promised efficiency, that merging systems would make the web smoother and cheaper for everyone. And on the surface, it did. Ads loaded faster. Campaigns performed better. Revenue for publishers spiked. But behind the curtain, Google's engineers were weaving something far more sophisticated. Each acquisition and each product was stitched together into one closed ecosystem. And as Google's reach expanded, so did its quiet control over the money flowing through the internet. The foundation of what would become a $100 billion empire had been laid in plain sight. Yet no one outside Google could see how deep it went. To understand how that helpful ecosystem became an invisible monopoly, we have to look at what happened next, when Google started locking the doors behind everyone else. Following DoubleClick, Google began layering more pieces into its ad stack. In 2010, it acquired Invite Media.
My name's Nat Turner, co-founder of Invite Media. We were acquired by Google last June.
And in 2011, AdMeld, two key players in ad buying and yield management. Each acquisition was a puzzle piece quietly snapping into place, and before long, Google didn't just participate in the digital ad market, it became the market. To most people, these names meant nothing. But inside Silicon Valley, everyone knew what was happening. Google was slowly surrounding the industry. Each year, another rival fell. Another tool folded into Google's machinery. They weren't crushing competition with brute force. They were doing it with convenience. Every new product promised publishers and advertisers the same thing. It'll make your life easier.
I think it's fair to say that this is the biggest change to the open web in 20 years. And the kind of the internet that we've grown up with and that we're used to and that we take for granted is going to change a lot in the next few years.
And it did, until it didn't. By owning every step of the process, from the tool advertisers use to buy space to the servers publishers use to sell it, Google had effectively built a closed ecosystem. They were no longer just the middleman. They were the gatekeeper, the auctioneer, and the house all in one. And if you didn't play by their rules, you simply didn't play. Then came one of the most controversial revelations in ad tech history, Jedi Blue. It sounded like something out of Star Wars, but it was very real. In secret documents later unsealed in court, Google and Meta, Facebook's parent company, had allegedly struck a backroom deal. The arrangement was simple. Facebook would not create a rival ad exchange that could threaten Google's dominance. In return, Facebook would get special treatment in Google's ad auctions, faster access, better data, and guaranteed wins. For everyone else, the message was clear. The game was rigged long before the auction started. But the manipulation didn't end there.
In fact, a vast majority of queries in Google, we don't show ads at all. And we show ads only for a small subset of queries where the intent from users is highly commercial.
When independent publishers tried using header bidding, a new technology that allowed them to compare offers from multiple ad exchanges at once, Google quietly fought back. They tweaked their system so that if a publisher dared to use header bidding, their ad revenues mysteriously dropped. Competitors were penalized, and those who stayed inside Google's walled garden were rewarded. It was a subtle form of control, one that most people didn't even notice was happening.
The algorithm needs time to learn. The algorithm needs sufficient data. The algorithm doesn't like bid limits. The algorithm. How does the Google Ads algorithm actually work? An algorithm is just a process to follow, a set of instructions or rules. In Google Ads, there are many different algorithms, most of which are now powered by AI, and they determine all aspects of your campaign performance given your inputs.
By 2023, Google commanded massive market shares across the ad tech landscape. It was the publisher's ad server through Google Ad Manager, the ad exchange through AdX, and the advertiser's toolbox through Google Ads and DV360. They were simultaneously the buyer, the seller, and the referee, all while taking a cut from every single transaction. It was like a casino where the house doesn't just take your bet, it also decides who wins. That's when regulators finally stepped in. The US Department of Justice began investigating what many insiders already knew, that Google had built an invisible empire, one designed to look competitive but structured to eliminate competition. And the deeper investigators dug, the uglier it got. Because what they uncovered next didn't just threaten Google's reputation, it threatened the foundation of the internet's entire business model.
The judge ruled this past week that Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. What's the problem here? It got a monopoly by being the best. What are you going after them for?
After the April 2025 ruling, the DOJ faced a dilemma. How do you dismantle a $100 billion empire that touches virtually every corner of the internet without collapsing the system? Breaking up Google Ads wasn't like splitting a lemonade stand from a convenience store. This was the beating heart of digital advertising, controlling trillions of ad impressions every year. Regulators proposed several remedies. One option was a structural breakup, forcing Google to separate its ad server from its ad exchange. Another was a behavioral fix, imposing strict rules about how Google could operate, monitor auctions, and treat competitors. The stakes were enormous. By 2023, Google's advertising revenue had already hit $224 billion annually, more than half of its parent company Alphabet's total revenue. Every small change in policy could ripple across the economy, affecting publishers, advertisers, and millions of small businesses reliant on Google's ad platforms. Meanwhile, competitors like The Trade Desk and Meta were circling. If Google were weakened, it wasn't just regulators who would benefit. Rivals were preparing to grab market share in a sector that had been virtually untouchable for over a decade. Meta's prior involvement in Jedi Blue also meant they had to tread carefully, lest new regulations open them up to scrutiny as well. Fines were another weapon. In 2023, the EU fined Google 1.49 billion euros for abusing its ad tech dominance, reinforcing that this wasn't just a US problem. Global regulators were tightening their grip. The US DOJ hinted similar financial penalties could accompany structural remedies, creating pressure on Alphabet's stock and long-term valuation. The battle isn't over yet. Even as court proceedings continue through late 2025, Google is already preparing for appeals, lobbying for more lenient behavioral restrictions rather than a full breakup. But analysts warn that any concessions could still dramatically reshape the digital ad ecosystem. Publishers may gain leverage, advertisers may find alternative networks, and the era of Google controlling nearly every dollar spent on online advertising could finally face its first real challenge. And yet, even in the face of these monumental legal battles, Google still holds a secret weapon: its unmatched ability to analyze data, predict consumer behavior, and adapt its systems faster than anyone else in the industry. So while the empire might be under pressure, the real question is, can regulators ever truly unseat a company built on an invisible web of control, algorithms, and global reach? The answer could define the internet economy for decades to come. If you made it this far, you already know how deep the rabbit hole goes. What you just saw is only the beginning. The next video will expose the forces shaping the internet's future and who's really pulling the strings. So, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.